This podcast is part of the Podcast Arcade Network.
Welcome to episode 15 of Paranormal Dads. I'm your co-host Andy.
I'm Eddie.
I'm Pat.
Join us as we go in search of the world's monsters, myths, and mysteries right here on Paranormal Dads. Welcome, everybody, for this. It's not a special episode, but it kind of is.
Yeah, it feels special.
Well, we kind of have a theme going today with St. Patty's Day.
That we do, laddie.
'Tis the season, and this is the first time we're back in the studio. It's been a little while.
It's been a clip.
Yeah.
I mean, we
were on the road last time.
Yeah, we were on the road. Before that, we recorded at Studio Plice.
That's
The
right.
exclusive studio here in town.
So now we're back in Casa Eddie.
We're back in Daydream Instruction Studios.
You guys feeling lucky?
You're feeling lucky.
You got your Shamrock Underooskies on?
Yes.
Right. It's the St. Patrick's Day weekend.
It
St.
is.
Patrick's Day on a Saturday night.
How fun is that for all you like crazy partiers having St. Patty's on a Saturday?
I try to stay off the streets on St. Patrick's Day nights on the weekend.
Probably wise.
Yeah.
Yeah. Funny thing, so when I moved to Nebraska, what I noticed here is some of the like cultural festivals, it seems to be really like celebrated in a big way here. And I got invited, my first couple of years of living here, I got invited to my first like traditional like Catholic St. Patrick's Day like dinner. Yeah. And I went and they had legit like potatoes, cabbage, and corned beef that was like corned beef. It was cooked and prepared and all that, and brined and all that. And it was an absolute blast. I had so much fun. And lots of beer as well, which was kind of weird for me to go to a church function that was just tons and tons of beer.
Oh, they like their beer.
Well, for me growing up, I went to a Catholic school, so it was kind of beneficial being named Patrick because we had an Irish priest. So he would always have this big pizza party for all the kids named Patrick or all the Irish named kids on St. Patrick's Day or right around there. So we'd get a special lunch of pizza and go hang out with.
All the kids who weren't named?
Yeah, they couldn't get away with that
there were
nowadays.
like 6 of us in the whole school, maybe.
Oh, I see.
And so that was kind of awesome.
Yeah, I don't think they could pull that off and be politically correct nowadays.
Yeah. What's your name? Bobby. Not Irish. No pizza for you.
Go eat your gruel.
But one of the things we're going to talk about today, we got Irish-themed paranormal events and activity, and there's actually quite a bit of it. If you start looking around, St. Patrick's Day and the paranormal, there's quite a bit of material there.
Oh, Ireland is the land of the land of like magic and the Celtic, mysteries, and it's very cool.
And they make no qualms about experiencing that kind of thing. They're pretty open about paranormal activity. Well, just look back a few months ago. We were talking about the ghost in the Irish high school.
Yeah,
and that was pretty
slamming
pretty
lockers
intense.
shut, kicking like wet floor signs across the hall.
Right.
Well, and I think in general, maybe Europe's a little bit more open to the paranormal because in previous episodes we've talked about in Iceland they're really open to gnomes and elves and that kind of thing, and of course fairies are big in Ireland and. So, but you're on the first segment today, Pat, which is recent sightings, correct?
That is correct. Ooh. It is time for recent sightings. And we are going to be talking about a haunted Irish pub. It's one of the best pubs in Seattle, Washington area. It's a place called Kel's Irish Restaurant and Pub. And each St. Patrick's Day, they have a huge St. Patrick's Day blowout. Just everybody's dressing up like leprechauns. But one of the interesting things about this place, it is notoriously haunted. And they've had a number of the ghost shows come in and check this place out. And it's, of course, one of the places all the sightseers stop to see. They've had experienced ghosts. They've had glasses thrown off tables and things like that. So we're going to get into a little information about this place and Irish type paranormal stuff that goes on around the holiday. But Kel's Irish Restaurant and Pub was it's a place in the historic Pike Place Market area, and it has an annual St. Patrick's Day celebration. It originally was a mortuary.
Oh, well, there you go. Now we're starting off on the right foot. Now you're starting on the right foot, laddie. Yes, you are.
It handled
That
thousands.
was kind of a pirate mixed in there.
I do what I can.
I've been to that Pike's Market. That place is awesome, man.
Is it?
You gotta be careful. You get hit in the head with a flying fish if you're not careful, though. Yeah, they toss those fish across the market, old school, just like you see on TV.
Really?
It's insane.
That's awesome.
I'm sorry, Pat.
No, you're good. But this mortuary handled thousands of bodies, and the stories around it reveal some pretty unscrupulous type activity. There's much to be read about regarding the history of the place. Many of the individuals were victims of mining accidents, poor sanitation, just the general violence of the times when this place was in operation.
Literally 1 million ways to die in the West. That's what.
And you can actually trace a lot of the deaths of these people back to one particular doctor in the time. Her name was Dr. Linda Hazard. And if you look at her, she looks like a hazard. I mean, she's kind of a creepy looking old lady.
Bride of Frankenstein.
This was not Bo and
and
Luke Duke.
Yeah.
This wasn't good old Hazard County. This was a crazy doctor who liked to starve her patients. She believed she could cure them of their diseases basically by starving them right out of her patients, right?
I just don't get old-timey medicine.
Well, you hear these stories of back in the day with doctors, like it was dangerous to go to the doctor because a lot of them didn't come back home.
No.
Well, it's like the
You
old
get lobotomized and then...
the old Steve Martin Saturday Night Live skit. You'll feel better after a good bleeding.
Exactly.
But what this lady would do is she'd starve these people, and then when they're on death's bed, she was able to convince them to give her power of attorney for their estates. So she was making a little on the side by doing this. Eventually, she got caught, and they got wise to her. The funny thing is, she was only convicted for one murder, and she spent 2 years in jail before being pardoned by the governor.
This is how horror movies start.
And the governor, she probably had in her back pocket somehow.
Must have, yeah. He was probably taking a kickback or something. But the funny thing is, once she got out of jail, they shipped her off to New Zealand. They're like, we're going to let you out of jail, but you have to move to New Zealand.
You have to leave the country.
Why New Zealand of all places?
I know, right? Like now they're New Zealand. Now she's New Zealand's problem.
Send her somewhere cold and uncomfortable.
Exactly. Although New Zealand is kind of like Australia, everything will kill you.
Well, that's true. It's beautiful, but deadly. Yeah.
But they believe that she killed over 50 people by her activities. So that's sad. But some of the stuff they see in this place. They see dark shadows in the corner of the room, glasses sliding across the bar by themselves, being smashed on the floor. They're hearing footsteps, typical kinds of things you would see in a
classic
haunted
deep
bar.
haunting,
right? There are some characters associated with this as far as the ghosts go. One of them's name is Charlie. Charlie appears wearing an old-fashioned hat and a long black coat. And he hangs around in bars and the stage areas. Many musicians have seen his shadows. Another one is called the Tall Man. He's often spotted by patrons, and he's said to have long hands and once spotted, he disappears immediately.
Well,
so it's like,
good.
oh, there's the tall man. Boop, he's gone.
You know what they say about ghosts with big hands?
They,
They wear big gloves.
exactly.
Do you think here's
They
a
clap
question.
really loud.
They clap really loud. Do you think that ghosts hang out at bars trying to pick up on other female ghosts?
That would be great, like a ghost singles bar.
Or here's another theory. Do you think like a lot of the glasses getting knocked around and doors slamming? What if on St. Patty's Day? What if it's just inebriated ghosts who are tripping and stumbling around just like people?
Right.
Totally drunk ghosts.
Didn't even mean to knock it off the table. He just had one too many.
Wasn't there a Disney movie that had a drunk ghost in it? I vaguely remember that.
Maybe it's the Haunted Mansion.
It was Blackbeard's ghost. Maybe. Yeah, I was one of him. The one that followed you home. No.
There's some goofy looking
That
ghosts
scared
in
the
the
heck
Haunted
out of me as a
Mansion.
kid, by the way. Like, oh, the ghost is going to follow you home, kids. Like, well done, Disney. Well done.
Well, our final ghost is simply called the little girl, and she's usually seen sitting at the top of the stairs. They don't know who she was, and she often disappears as quickly as she appears. So hard to get a trace on her. But that's just apparently this place has been visited, like I said, by most of the TV shows and the ghost hunting type
And they've
circuit.
all seen something, correct? Like, they've all had experiences.
Yeah. The footsteps, the noises, what is it, EMFs or
Yeah,
or EVP.
They have
EVP.
EMF detector, and then you got the EVP, which is the audio voice recordings. Yeah.
It's hard to keep all these acronyms straight.
I know, right?
Yeah.
So anyway, so there's a lot of creepy Irish lore to be had out there. You got fairies, you got evil leprechauns. In the U.S. we see leprechauns as these jolly little people handing out cash to people, and over in Ireland, they're kind of creepy guys. They originally came from the sea.
Yeah.
People believe, and they're little tricksters, and they want little to do with the general public, from what I hear. Yeah, I mean, there's a lot going on.
The idea that we took a thing that was, and that's kind of an American thing too that we do, is like we take these European like characters and stories and kind of tweak them to make them more like friendly for kids or for us even.
Commercialize them.
Exactly. But then you have I remember reading that the whole idea of a leprechaun wasn't that they were something that you would necessarily want to go after. Which kind of ties right into my segment coming up here. So I won't say too much.
Well, I don't care, man. Leprechauns make delicious cereal with that Lucky Charms there.
Yes.
St. Patrick's Day is an Irish holiday traditionally. Of course, it could be bigger here in America now than any
I've heard
place
that's
else.
the case, actually.
But it's funny because you start searching around for Irish and paranormal type stuff. You come across Nessie, and
Yes.
Nessie is technically Scotland.
She's
right?
Scotland, yeah.
So I opened this huge can of worms last night when I'm kind of researching some of this stuff. Do you guys consider Scotland a country?
Well, Scotland technically is part of Britain, and that's going to set a lot of people off, but it is.
It's part of the UK.
Part of the UK.
And that blew my mind.
Yeah,
it's like I must have missed this when I was in elementary school or
They
something.
never-
How did I miss this? But
Yeah.
But you got Ireland, Scotland.
Well, Ireland is its own country.
Right.
You got England or Great Britain.
Right.
You got Scotland, Northern Ireland,
And Wales.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That makes up the UK.
Right.
You know, I guess that makes me an American because that just blew my mind.
Yeah.
I'm like, I always thought Scotland was a country, and they say that you can say that Great Britain's a country. You can call Scotland a country. Northern Ireland's a country, but they're not. They're all independent states, or they're not completely independent states.
Right.
So it's very confusing.
It's kind of like, it's a weird mix.
Well, we'll consider the Loch Ness Monster a cryptid cousin of Ireland then.
But you can go and get a green T-shirt with Nessie on the front, and I'll call it Irish, whatever.
I think we'll be okay. One of my favorite parts of the movie Braveheart is when the Irish come to help the Scots fight off the Brits. So I kind of like the whole oh, they're buddies. They had a common enemy,
and they did it in skirts.
There you go. They did exactly.
They did it in skirts. Well, I guess if you're ever in the Pikes, was it Pikes Place Market?
Pikes Place.
In Seattle, be sure to check out that bar and watch out for the tall man and watch out for the big hands and the little girl on the stairs and the guy in the dark coat.
Cheers.
Cheers.
And the flying fish.
Watch out for that flying fish. It'll get you.
It's time for pop, culture, and the paranormal.
All right, so pop culture and the paranormal. It's my turn. There is a movie that, for me, I watched a ton as a kid, and it scared the dickens out of me. There's a scene in it that scares me to death. And even as an adult, grown man, I watched this scene again recently with my kids, and my kids were like, well, that looked kind of fake. And even still, it just scared me because it just reminded me of this. But the movie I'm talking about you don't get more Irish than this movie. It's called Darby O'Gill and the Little People. And it is a story. It's completely set in. It's a Disney movie, first of all, and this is set in Disney's kind of beginning of Disney's dark phase.
Yeah, you've told me this before, that Disney kind of went through a darker chapter where it wasn't all kind of sunshine and rainbows and family feel good movies, right?
It did hover around a family feel good movie, but Disney had this weird sense of scary that he just didn't. I don't know. There's a series of movies that came out from Disney. There's one called Something Wicked This Way Comes. There's one that's called Escape to Witch Mountain.
Right.
There's The Black Cauldron. There's a few other ones, and this one kind of Blackbeard's Ghost, which kind of had some comedic elements in it, but it was still a little creepy. Bed Knobs and Broomsticks, for a lot of people, it's kind of scary because there's a ghost army that fights off some stuff.
Is that the one where they were kidnapping kids, or what? Maybe
that's
Mary
Something
Poppins.
Wicked, I think.
Mary Poppins. There's just one Disney movie, and I digress. But there's one Disney movie where they kidnap some kids and they throw them in this horse-drawn cart. I just remember that scene freaking me out as a kid.
Yeah.
What movie was that?
I don't remember.
Chitty Chitty Bang Bang, I think.
I think it was Chitty Chitty Bang Bang.
I think it was, yeah.
But there's a lot of those
Anyway.
darker elements in these movies that you're kind of like, what's happening here? Darby O'Gill captures this perfectly. So the story, for those who don't know what it is Darby O'Gill he's the town kind of drunk for this small town in Ireland. And he goes to the bar after his hard day of work, gets properly sauced, and then stumbles home. That's kind of what he's known for doing. And the film, and it kind of doesn't play nice into the stereotypes. This was also filmed in the late 50s, early 60s, so there was no sense of we should be sensitive. And so on his way home, he sees the king of the leprechauns. And I'm going to butcher some of these details, but I've seen it so many times the movie kind of mushes together in my brain. But he manages to catch the leprechaun king, and he actually keeps him prisoner in his house and won't let him go. And eventually the leprechaun king, the gif I sent you guys was a scene from that movie, by the way.
I was wondering where that came from. It's creepy.
It's creepy looking.
Yeah, I thought it was actually from the horror movie, The Leprechaun.
That's from the Disney
series.
No.
That is creepy, man.
It's a little scary. And so the leprechaun agrees finally, because he's kept him for overnight or for several days. He's like, I finally agree. I'll give you my gold, or I'll give you some of the gold. Not all the gold or whatever. And so he sees the leprechaun kingdom. They let him into their whole kingdom, and he sees a whole underground city of leprechauns. The effects are actually kind of good, actually. And so he sees all this stuff, and they kind of party. He parties with the leprechauns, basically. But something happens where they trick him. The leprechauns trick him and give him no gold. And
what did he expect? They're kind of tricksters, right?
Right.
Did they pay him in glow sticks?
You get no gold. You got glow sticks. Gold glow sticks.
Green glow sticks.
Exactly. But he comes back from this. They kick him out of their kingdom, and he goes and he tells everybody I captured the king, and he lured me, and I went to their thing, and they held me prisoner, and the whole town's laughing at him. Ha ha ha, Darby O'Gill. Well, the thing is, this is where the details get a little bit hazy. by him capturing, I think he stole some gold, maybe. Anyway, whatever happened, he got the spirits of Ireland upset at him for what he did. And long story short, there's a subplot in this where he has a daughter who's, beautiful and young, and she falls in love with a super young Sean Connery, who is like Scottish, but still he's playing an Irish guy. Once again, or Scotland, Ireland. But he's playing an Irish guy, and he's like the brash, good-looking guy that's singing to all the ladies, and there's a subplot with that where Darby O'Gill, she does something. Oh yeah, she goes looking for her dad, runs into a banshee in these abandoned like Irish ruins, and there's a lot of those in Ireland, like these old castles or old like churches that are just kind of fallen over. And this scene is so scary, and it shows the banshee coming down from like the sky, and she's just wailing, letting out the most blood curdling. I'm going to show you guys this before you leave. You probably don't want to.
I'm not going to be able to sleep tonight if I watch that.
And between the sound of the banshee, and there was this style of effect in that time where the even though it didn't look real, it looked. There's a word that Bruce Crawford has used. He goes, it looks like an effect, but it looks real. Mm-hmm. Like it's not really happening, but it looks like it's still real. Versus this looks more realistic, but it doesn't look real, like computer effects. So the point is, this thing is terrifying looking. Mm-hmm. And she gets essentially cursed by the banshee. The banshee won't stop coming for her until she's dead. She's dead, basically. And they even send this like stagecoach to come take her away, like this death coach. Yeah. And this is spoiler alert, but this movie is like 60 years old. Darby O'Gill makes an agreement essentially with the banshee to exchange his life for his daughter's. So he was kind of this reprehensible guy who ended up doing a noble thing in the end.
Almost a Scrooge kind of thing.
Kind of a Scrooge thing. He was more likable, but still he was just kind of a loser kind of character. But
he totally redeemed himself.
If I remember right, no. And then there was a twist at the end. He was being carried away by death to save his daughter, and the leprechaun king shows up like magic inside the chariot, and is like, "Oh, Darby, you can't die this way." And he like kicks him out of the carriage because apparently the leprechaun king has some ability to cheat death or whatever, and kicks him out of the carriage. Like Darby O'Gill couldn't have left on his own, but the fact that the guy did it was different. But the leprechaun basically paid him back by saving his life and not giving him gold necessarily. But very cool movie.
So nobody died.
Nobody ended up dying. Yeah. But there was definitely the threat of it. My goodness.
Jeez.
Yeah. There's a scene where the girl, his daughter, is going with a horse, and it's raining, and then you hear the banshee wailing before you even see her, and it's so like well done. But I recommend it highly for anybody who's craving a little Irish fun Disney movie. It's a little creepy, but it's kid appropriate. I mean, I wouldn't say it's a little kid appropriate, but you could probably get a 8, 9, 10-year-old, and they'd be okay for the most part.
Yeah, some of those older ones can be a little bit creepy, and I think I know what you mean by the the special effects that make it look even creepier. I'm thinking all the way back to The Wizard of Oz. When they cut to that scene, it's like almost like a faded out, blurry image of the witch that was flying towards them to get them.
It's more scary looking.
Yeah, and it looks it's totally cheesy, and it's bad special effects, but it's the type of special effect that just makes it look eerie.
Yeah. Yeah.
But
I'm with you. But yeah, there you go. And there is some funny bits in it because of just how like crazy it is. Seeing the leprechauns dance around and stuff like that. The way they do some of the effects too, like he's like, "Here you go, Darby," and he's handing him like a giant green pea, but it's like a big like green like ball, and then it cuts to Darby picking up a pea. You know what I mean? So it's very funny how they do some of those little effects.
When did this movie come out?
I want to say it was the late 50s or early 60s. Okay. It was like 58. 59, maybe 60, something like that. But it was
maybe a little before the whole 60s kind of freaky looking, the way movies were shot in the 60s. There was some pretty weird stuff in the 60s.
This looks more like it was like the way it was shot like cinematography wise. It looks more like Sound of Music.
Okay.
Like just how super saturated the colors are and stuff like that.
The Technicolor look.
Exactly. It's like so rich, like your teeth get like rotted. Like, oh, it's like candy color.
Right.
But yeah, super, super weird and quirky and a little creepy.
Well, speaking of leprechauns, we are dads collectively. Between the three of us, we have six children.
Yeah, there you go.
Independently, not together. We're not that close, but but didn't one of your daughters, Eddie? She made like a leprechaun trap a few years back.
Yes.
And how'd that go?
Oh, it's every year.
Oh, you still do it every year?
Gwen still is on the bus of certain things. She doesn't believe in the tooth fairy.
Sure.
But she still believes in other things. So it's kind of like these things don't like fade all at once. They kind of drop off. And I forget which kid started this. I mean, maybe we started it with her, but we started doing leprechaun traps, where you just build these elaborate little traps that the whole idea being that you're trying to catch a leprechaun. And the way we got around it was like the leprechaun just leaves behind a pile of candy.
Oh, okay.
And so, because it's like, well, a kid doesn't have much use for gold coins. When they were little, they were like, oh yeah, what am I going to do with gold coins? But I love candy.
Gwen's going to become an engineer, coming up with all these traps.
She's already talking like all this elaborate stuff, and I'm like, oh. And a friend of ours, and we talked about doing some shout outs, but a friend of ours, end of the podcast, Justin Tallman, his son, is so dead set on setting a leprechaun trap up. He has, I think right now, like 8 or 9 traps set up all throughout their house and outside.
That's something we've never done, but that's a cool tradition to do.
Oh my gosh.
Of course, kids nowadays with technology, they can probably up their game from a shoebox and, propped up with a stick. They probably have like infrared cameras and trail cams and drones. I'm going to catch this leprechaun.
GPS tracker.
Yeah.
Maybe a black squirrel.
Before the podcast began, I had an ADD moment. Eddie has a lot of kind of trinkets and collectibles here in our studio, and I looked down and I said, hey, there's a stuffed black squirrel. Where'd you get that? And he's currently on our podcast table.
There he is.
Oh my gosh. It's kind of creepy, kind of cute though too.
He's on loan to me from a coworker friend, and he just helps out.
Little taxidermied little critter here. What'd you name him?
No critters were harmed by Paranormal Dads in this episode.
None at all. He has been taxidermied for years and years. I don't know how long, but quite a long time.
What'd you name him?
Buford T. Squirrel.
Buford T. Squirrel. What does the T stand for?
Tiberius.
Oh my gosh.
Of course.
Well, there you have it, folks. Pop culture and the paranormal, little bonus squirrel action there.
Squirrely finish.
And now it's time for the main mystery.
All right, main mystery for this St. Patrick's Day episode. I figured it would be appropriate enough to choose the main mystery of the Irish Banshee.
Oh, they're so freaky.
Dudes.
So scary.
It's kind of terrifying.
I was introduced to the Banshee. This must be the night I'm going to be talking about a lot of my Catholic school stories, because in Catholic school is where I was introduced to the Banshee. I want to say it was music class.
Yeah.
And we were studying something, and the topic of Banshees came up.
Oh, Lordy.
But I remember to this day being a kid and just thinking, that's pretty freaky.
That's one of those ones. The idea of a wailing woman, it's always a woman, ghost or spirit or wraith, whatever you want to call her, just wailing out as loud as she can, just sends shivers up my spine. There was a very unique article I came across years ago, and it was detailing out the conversion of the ancient Irish people, because like pre-Christian missionaries, Ireland was kind of this like tribal, like nature worship style culture. There wasn't a lot of there wasn't any Christianity yet being brought over from the Middle East, frankly, and then converting all of these, pagans essentially is what they called them, which is kind of like a word that just they're lumping together everybody, but there was a bunch of like different tribes that just worshipped like nature spirits and all this stuff. But that's a lot of where these like stories come from, is those ancient. These aren't Christian stories. These are older that get brought forward into the vernacular now. But just knowing that some of these creatures, especially the Banshee, has those old crusty roots that go back prehistory even. You're like, man, was this real? My first exposure to the Banshee was that movie, Darby O'Gill. I'd never even heard of the Banshee before. And I just see this woman descending from the sky, just wailing and screaming into nothingness. And I'm like, this is the most terrifying thing I've ever seen in my life.
And that's one of the signatures. They say the Banshee, it's always a woman. It usually comes from the sky or from the woods, and she's known for a terrifying, high-pitched shriek that is unlike any sound that you could hear. Ungodly, almost like nails on a chalkboard mixed with Gilbert Gottfried's voice, I guess. It'll hurt the ears a little bit. And there's a lot of variations as far as the appearance of the Banshee. Varies wildly, kind of like the Chupacabra.
Yeah, exactly.
There's like 50 different descriptions of what it looks like.
The Banshee Cabra.
The Banshee Cabra. Some reports say Banshees have red hair, others white, others silver. Some people report it as a young, beautiful woman. Others report that Banshees are kind of old and decrepit and wrinkly. There's one constant, aside from the wailing that accompanies them, is bloodshot red eyes from crying too much.
Ooh.
And one might think, why would a Banshee be crying so much? And, well, it's because of their job duty. It's rather sad. It's said that Banshees appear outside of households to basically usher the soul of somebody who's on the verge of dying, ushering their soul into the afterlife. So usually the Banshee will appear the night before that somebody in that house is going to die. And from there, I guess it's a game of Russian roulette, because it doesn't specify how do you know who in the house is on the verge of, who's on death's doorstep. Yeah.
Just having you say that made me have goosebumps, just so you know. I'm just putting that out there.
Dude, if we hear a shriek outside of your... Because the studio here backs up to a wooded area, dude. If we hear a shriek or a howl out there, I'm out of here. You can hit stop on the recording.
I'm just going to lay and curl up in a ball.
Well, and to top it all off, it's not like they bring gold coins and, like leprechauns or chocolate like the Easter Bunny or a couple bucks like the Tooth Fairy. Banshees are known, in some cases, known to carry a bucket of blood.
What?
So that's nice. Yeah. A little fun fact there. Bucket of blood. For what purpose, I have no idea.
Where do they get the bucket?
Exactly.
Where do they get the blood? So many questions.
So I don't know. I mean, this is a phenomena I wasn't too terribly familiar with, but pretty creepy. As far as dress, kind of from what I gathered, kind of same with the description of the hair and everything. Their attire varies a little bit, but a lot of people report that Banshees typically wear almost like a Grim Reaper type of outfit,
like a robe,
a hooded robe kind of deal. Yeah.
Wasn't there like a pirate movie, and they were sailing towards some land, island or something, and there were, I remember, cliffs, and they were afraid of like some kind of a screaming spirit or something. Were those Banshees?
Was that an old Disney? I don't know if that was a Disney movie.
I think you're thinking of Blackbeard's Ghost. Maybe. The Disney movie. I could have sworn there was a Banshee in that as well.
Yeah, there were like Banshees on the cliffs, and they were screaming and just basically to scare the pirates away. But
yeah, we got to look this stuff up.
Oh.
Yeah, I don't know. Either way, it's creepy as heck. It does ring a bell though, Pat. And I don't know. I think if I'm hearing any screaming outside the house,
screaming cliffs of Dover or something.
Oh my gosh! What is such an interesting thing to observe is so many of these creatures and characters are so like heartbreaking. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like the Banshees are an omen of death. And the leprechauns, apparently, even if you do catch them, the goal is cursed. You know what I mean? Like it's just like nothing is.
Yeah.
Nothing's happy.
When their eyes are red because they've been crying for their entire existence. That's freaky.
Funny part of me is thinking of those allergy commercials. Dry eyes get clear eyes.
Get some Visine. Are your eyes red from crying because your job is to usher in all the dead people?
Seasonal allergies.
Here, have some Visine, Banshee.
Don't use more than 3 times a day.
But the thing with a lot of these European, and I guess you could say the same for African or South American, they're old, very, very old legends and myths. fairies, elves, gnomes, dwarves, banshees, things of this nature. You're talking going back thousands of years.
Yeah.
Like practically prehistory. And for my money, of course, it might be a different story if I saw a chupacabra, but a chupacabra, and even Bigfoot, you could say, they're more recent kind of legends that, the Banshee and some of those European lore, they go back long time. And maybe almost like a snowball rolling downhill, gathering momentum. I just think the fear factor goes up a little bit when you have something that's been around for a long time. Stories get passed down through the generations, and you add more new stories to that. And it also makes you wonder, when a legend has been around so long, if there's a kernel of truth to it. Because you would think that if it's complete hogwash, then eventually throughout the eons it would kind of fall off as completely bogus.
Kind of go away.
It would go away.
Be done with it. Yeah.
It would go away, and the thing about it too, to me, is just like it's such a strong tie to that specific culture. You know what I mean? Like, I know like various cultures have their different, like, myths and mysteries and all that, but gosh, man, like, something is so powerful about just the word banshee. I mean, you hear it and you're like, oh,
yeah, it just sounds like a creepy thing.
Yeah. They got the market on weird names for scary things.
I'm a banshee.
Well, I got a little story here I found from a website called yourirish.com, and it's just kind of a firsthand account of what might be a legit banshee sighting or experience here.
Yeah.
Little word to the wise, it's probably not going to end happily. It's a short story here. It says, quote, "I remember being told as a young child of an uncle who was walking home on a cold and blustering night. He was probably 3 sheets to the wind after partaking in drinks to keep out the cold. On arriving home, he told my grandma that he had tried to comfort an old woman that he had met along the way. Describing the woman, he said the old woman was dressed in black with a veil over her face and was crying and wailing outside the house. Now, every time he went over to her, she moved away, but all the while kept pointing at the house. My grandmother, with all her knowledge of old Irish legends, knew straight away that this old lady what the old lady represented, and she hurried my uncle to bed, reassuring him that she herself would have a look for the old woman. Needless to say, she didn't dare do such a thing. Then, sure enough, only 3 days after this encounter, my grandma's brother died peacefully in his sleep. Yeah. And as children, we used to bug my uncle to retell the story of the night that he tried to invite the Banshee in for tea. No, thank you.
Oh, jeez.
Anyway.
That's
well, I mean, maybe there's some credibility here. Why would there be a woman in black? Why would she be wearing a veil? Why on God's green earth would she be pointing and kind of screaming and wailing at the house?
At the house.
Yeah.
But of course, if he didn't know the legend, hey, what's wrong? Come in for a spot of tea.
Hey, girl, come on inside the house. Here's some tea.
We're gonna play some Scrabble. You should join us.
No, you don't like Scrabble.
It's going to be your last game of Scrabble.
Well, that's not very nice.
That wasn't the UPS man out there.
She's more of a Uno fan. I hear the Banshee.
I've never heard a wailing, screaming woman outside the house, but you know what is really eerie is to hear coyotes howling and carrying on and making a ruckus.
They make some strange sounds.
Yeah, my house also, my backyard also backs up to a wooded area, as you guys know, just like Eddie's does here. And recently we have coyotes. What do you guys say, coyotes or coyotes?
I say coyote, but that's because I'm not from here.
I usually say coyote.
Coyote. Well, we have them in the wooded area behind my house, and once every couple of weeks they'll start cackling and shrieking out there. It's eerie.
Yeah,
and it reminds me of back on our Bigfoot expedition it was in the Ozarks.
That's a very big area.
It's such a huge area that doesn't give away where we were at. Yeah. But we were out there in the middle of the night, searching for Mr. Foot, and when those coyotes started carrying on, it was eerie. It almost sounds like a lady screaming.
It can.
Yeah. And there was a group of people kind of manning a fire at kind of one of our starting points, and they said they were cooking bacon, and they said that these coyotes came. They could see the coyotes on the other side of the fire, coming that close to
Yeah.
them. It's pretty unnerving that they are not that timid.
Yeah, they were gutsy.
Yeah. Oh,
So we had one walk right across in the middle of the day, walk across the kids' schoolyard.
that's
And
insane.
when they're in elementary school, they had kids out on recess, and this coyote comes walking across the schoolyard.
What?
They rounded up the kids and got them inside, but the people speculated, wondering if it was a sick one or something,
Yeah.
that it was didn't have all its senses.
Yeah. It wouldn't
out in
normally
the
do that.
broad daylight, but.
I'd still rather see a coyote than a banshee.
I'd rather see a
Yeah.
coyote any day. But then again, here's just a part of me that's kind of brainstorming, trying to keep things lighthearted. If a banshee showed up to your house, could you just like get in your car and leave real quick and just say, "Oh, wrong house. We're not home. It doesn't count.
I'm like, I don't live here, man.
I don't even live here. I'm just visiting, man.
Then she's like, where do you live? I don't know. I'm homeless.
I'm
Go."
nomadic."
Yeah. Yeah. There's got to be a way to outsmart her. You just keep moving.
Just keep moving.
Yeah. Send her the change of address form that you make when you. This is where I'm moving to. Just keep her on a cycle.
But there is a lot of Irish legends and folklore, and of course we kind of forget about all that on St. Patrick's Day when the green beer is flowing and the corned beef tastes so good. But anyway, I guess we'll wrap it up. We hope you enjoyed this kind of special or different kind of themed episode, and I thought it was fun. So have a very safe and very happy St. Patrick's Day to everyone out there. And I guess unfortunately, Eddie, for you and I, we don't have Irish names, and we won't get spoiled with pizza and treats like Patrick here did in elementary school.
I know, right? Oh man.
Well, we want to thank everybody for listening, and be sure to check in with us on Facebook from time to time. Also, we're on Twitter. Both of those is just Paranormal Dads, all one word. Just search for us, and you can find us. We're also doing quite well on Instagram now, so you can find Paranormal Dads on Instagram. We'll throw some pictures out every now and then, maybe even a picture of that black squirrel.
There you go.
We'll see.
And a special thank you to our friends at freesounds.org for all of our sound effects and all the where to's and why fors.
Have a good day, everybody.
Bye.
Wouldn't that be great if we isolated the problem right here and now?
Exactly.
Take that cord home and cut it in half.
Like, it reminds me of that line from Back to the Future when he's like, "Do you know what this means? It means that this damn thing doesn't work at all."
Yeah, Doc.
Yeah.